In today's story, we explore the journey of a war veteran and a squad as they navigate the complexities of their personal lives after returning from service. I'm a Special Forces member, and I've been on 3 tours. These deployments have often kept me away from home for months at a time. I got married when I was 24, and now I'm 36. My squad consists of 6 members, and we've been through a lot together. When we're back in the States, we make it a point to get together for a barbecue almost every month. It's a way for us to bond and unwind. Just 3 days ago, we had one of these get-togethers. I was at my friend's place with my squad, and our wives were at my house having their own little gathering. We all live in the same neighborhood near the base. At one point during the gathering, we realized we were out of beer, so I volunteered to go fetch some from my place. I walked across the street and took the long way around to pick up something from the shed, entering through the back door and near the kitchen. That's when I heard it. The giggling and hushed conversations. I couldn't help but eavesdrop as I grabbed the beer. They were talking about their affairs, discussing who they thought their affair partners were cute, comparing intimate details and even sharing tips on where to meet and how to keep it all hidden. It was like a punch to the gut. I've been through some tough situations in my military career, including getting shot 3 times, but nothing could have prepared me for this. It felt like I had been struck by lightning. In training, we talked to control our emotions, to stay calm and rational in the face of adversity. It's like flipping a switch, and I had to do it then. I managed to switch off my emotions and didn't confront them. I grabbed the beer and returned to my friends, but inside, I was anything but calm. My friends noticed my unease, but I didn't say a word. Now I find myself in a moral dilemma. I know I'm going to divorce my wife, but I'm unsure about whether to reveal the truth to my friends. I'm concerned that my wife might tell them before I have the chance, and I'm torn about whether or not to hurt them further. Next day contacted my commanding officer and shared with him what had transpired. He sighed as if he had been through something similar and assured me he understood. He also promised to grant us leaves to sort out our lives. In addition to his support, he provided me with contact information for a legal firm known for handling situations like this. In my state, it's legal to record everything as long as you have the consent of the owner of the house or car, which, in this case, was me. I had previously installed a surveillance system in my home and car primarily for security reasons against break-ins or insurance fraud. However, I never really checked those recordings, and the old ones were merely being overwritten. With the urgency of the situation, I replaced 42 terabyte hard disks in my house and 1 2 terabyte hard disk in my car to preserve as much evidence as I could. The next step was to gather my friends at a single friend's house, lock the doors, and take away their personal firearms. I had to lay it all out for them, revealing everything, including the recordings of the meeting our wife's head. The next few hours were incredibly difficult. It started with shock and disbelief. I witnessed the kind of heart-wrenching emotions you might expect battlefield. The stoic warriors showing signs of vulnerability, and it hit hard. Then came the anger, which was even more challenging to manage. My single friend, and I had to restrain them to prevent things from spiraling out of control. After the rage subsided, there was a wave of despair. They began sharing stories about the red flags they had noticed before, but dismissed, thinking it could never happen to them. They had believed their marriages were solid, and now everything was falling into place, connecting the dots of betrayal and deception. The stories I heard that they were truly terrifying and heart-wrenching. One of my friends who has a 6-year-old son shared his deepest fear that his son might not be his biological child. It was a gut-wrenching revelation that shook us all. In those moments, all we had was each other, just like on the battlefield. We leaned on one another for support and camaraderie just as we always had. One of my buddies went down to the cellar and brought up a case of really good liquor. That day, we needed it, so we all got blackout drunk and eventually passed out. The next morning, we woke up, made breakfast, took some meds to help with the hangovers, and that's when I saw something change in my buddies. It was like a switch flipped and all expressions left their faces. We were in mission mode, surrounded by hospitals once again. We gathered, and I laid out my plan. I wanted to unleash a kind of Armageddon on those who had hurt us so profoundly. To my relief, they all immediately agreed that this was the best course of action for us. Our action plan took shape like this. Assume a full poker face and go undercover. Gather all data storage devices from our homes and replace them discreetly. 2 of us would sift through all the data and compile a detailed analysis at my buddy's home. We snoop around for our wayward wives, laptops, and cell phones, and install spyware on them. Obtain tracker data for the last year from the tracker company. Retrieve bank statements and credit card reports. Get in touch with base legal and inform them about our situation, seeking advice on what it meant for our pensions and other legal aspects. Meet with lawyers from the legal firms and retain them as quickly as possible, and instructing them to prepare the necessary legal papers. 2 of us would track down and confront our wayward wives to obtain information about their partners. Research had to go nuclear on situation without causing harm to ourselves in the process. This was our battle plan, and we were determined to see it through just as we had on the field of battle. With our plan laid out and determination to see it through, we turned to Reddit for help. We started researching extensively, particularly on dealing with wayward spouses and their possible reactions, such as gaslighting, blame shifting, and excuses. We compiled a detailed report on these possible responses and crafted our own prepared replies. We worked meticulously to prepare all the gathered evidence into a well-detailed infobomb that we could use when the time was right. Our next step was to separate our finances discreetly and swiftly just before the confrontation. We established an ambush strategy, preparing to unleash a kaboom of doom and watch the fallout. Our goal was to go full no contact with our wayward wives as soon as the fallout began, and then seek therapy to cope with the emotional aftermath. We set up an empty room in my friend's home as our forward operating base and got down to work. We reached to the legal team, sharing all the data we had collected. They assured us that the evidence was airtight and asked whether we wanted a quiet, amicable divorce, or scorched earth policy. We opted for the latter. Our houses were owned by us completely and were private property acquired before we were married. They weren't a significant issue in the divorce. We filed divorce papers under adultery charges, and our retirement funds and pensions were also protected. Upon our lawyer's suggestion, we decided to transfer 50% of all shared accounts to our personal accounts before serving them with divorce papers. We also explored the possibility of gathering evidence against their affair partners to sue them for alienation of affection charges. Our lawyers were experienced and ruthless sharks, and we had confidence in their abilities to handle our cases effectively. My lawyer has seen these kinds of situations before, especially in military marriages, and she explained that it unfortunately runs rampant among military spouses. What hit me hard was that she shared that she too had been a victim of infidelity and had no mercy for cheaters. It was clear that she truly understood what we were going through. In just a week, they managed to prepare all the necessary divorce papers. They work fast and efficiently. My lawyer also warned us that if we decide to expose our wayward wives completely, including to their workplaces, they are likely to lose their jobs, and we would have to pay temporary alimony until they can find gainful employment. It's a tough decision, but we're willing to face the consequences. Due to the military checkpoint near our house, we requested data on specific vehicles and individuals suspected of being affair partners through our commanding officer. He's been incredibly supportive throughout. We've then correlated all the data from the GPS trackers on our wife cars, analyzing the frequency of affair partner visits, the dates, and video and audio evidence from our homes and cars. This allowed us to positively identify all the affair partners. I was seeking to learn that my soon-to-be ex-wife had 3 affair partners during our marriage. Watching what they did in our marital home was psychologically scarring, and it felt like I was falling into a black hole with no hope of returning. It was a devastating experience that made me question everything. Despite all the turmoil, we found support in each other. Every time one of us fell into depression, the others rushed to their aid. Our bond as brothers-in-arms kept us afloat in this hellish ocean of despair. Once we discovered who the affair partners were, where they lived, and what they did, we hired private investigators to dig deeper into their backgrounds. All the 8 were co-workers for the wives. I'm in a constant state of emotional numbness these days. Every smile, every laugh. They're all faked. I can barely stop myself from feeling sick every time I hear her say I love you. Physically, I recoil every time she wants to call, but I have to endure it. Being near her is like a storm in my head. It's a messed up situation because despite all that's happened, I still love her. But I know that I need to find a way to overcome these emotions somehow. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks for the support and kindness I've received. It's been incredibly encouraging to know that there are people out there who have faced similar situations and emerged with their dignity intact. So many people have reached out to me offering strength and solidarity as we continue to fight. 2 days ago, it all finally unfolded for all 6 of us, and the experiences were different for each. As for me, it wasn't very dramatic, perhaps because of how I approached it. 3 days before we took the plunge, I called my mom and told her I'm coming to visit, and we would visit my soon-to-be ex-wife's parents. They live about a 4-hour drive away in the same community. We visit them for a few days every time I return to the States. Both sets of parents are old school, very religious and conservative, but they're also very loving and kind people. Before executing our plan, we reached out to other betrayed spouses for advice. Initially, our idea was to present divorce papers to both our wayward wives and their affair partners on the same day. However, we realized that this approach could become extremely dangerous. Even if just one betrayed spouse looked into our wayward wives' activities, it would alert them and give them time to craft excuses and strategies to counter our actions. The need for a blind-side operation became apparent to ensure that our wayward spouses wouldn't catch wind of what we were planning. We decided to involve 3 other betrayed spouses to bolster our efforts. During this time, I noticed my soon-to-be wife's behavior becoming increasingly suspicious. She became more attentive, flirty, clingy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was onto something. I had to maintain a facade and reciprocate even though I was emotionally disconnecting every hour. It's astonishing how challenging it is to lie to someone you love, and it felt like she was doing it effortlessly. We enlisted the help of some of our other friends to distribute together data and contact the remaining betrayed spouses and our wayward wife's parent on the day of the confrontation. We set up a WhatsApp group to coordinate all the necessary actions. A day before the planned confrontation, I took my soon-to-be ex-wife to a friend's place about 3 miles away and received a fake phone call from the same friend. I told her to wait there for a while, explaining that I had to meet my commanding officer about something and would be back in a few hours. I suggested she enjoy some time with her girlfriends. Then I rushed back home where another friend was waiting with a pickup truck. I had already sorted and packed all of my soon-to-be ex-wife's belongings, clothes, electronics, and so on into pre-made boxes, and I loaded everything onto the truck as quickly as possible. In about 2 hours, I was finished. I returned to my friend's place to pick up my soon-to-be ex-wife and gave my friend a thumbs up, signaling that everything was ready for the next step of our plan. I drove my car with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and my friend with the truck followed us, keeping a distance of about an hour's drive. We arrived at her parents' house at around 3 p.m., and my mom joined us at about 5 p.m. We greeted them, hung out, and played with her sister's children. Meanwhile, my friend was waiting in a nearby restaurant anticipating my signal. At 9 p.m., we had a lovely dinner, and everyone was engaged in conversation. I messaged my friend with a thumbs-up emoji and then stood up, announcing that I had an important announcement to make. I asked my ex-sister-in-law to take the children upstairs, and then I requested everyone to sit down and stay quiet until I was done speaking. My soon-to-be ex-wife grew visibly anxious at this point, and I believe she sensed what was coming. But by then, I had made up my mind. I calmed myself, took a deep breath, and began to lay it all out there. I told them about my soon-to-be ex-wife's affair, and showed them printouts of all the evidence I had gathered on this affair. I encouraged them to verify it if they had any doubts. The room was filled with stunned silence. Nobody knew how to respond. I continued letting them know I had voice recordings, message change, emails, videos, and pictures. I also had information on all the affair partners, who they were, where they worked, where they lived, who their other betrayed spouses were, and what they did. I even had all their information printed out in a file if anyone wanted to review and confirm it. By this point, my soon-to-be ex-wife had shrunk 3 sizes. Her face displaying utter shock and terror. The truth had been revealed, and the consequences of her actions were becoming painfully apparent. I continued to address the situation, making it clear that I could not and would not continue a relationship without trust, respect, and love, which my soon-to-be ex-wife actions had conclusively proven she could not provide. With that, I presented the divorce papers. She began to mumble and plead, saying, "No. Please, no. Don't." I assured her that I hadn't exposed her to our mutual friends or workplace, but I warned her not to create false narratives about our situation, as I had evidence to tell the truth. I explained that my house was solely in my name pre-marriage, and our finances were already separated due to the nature of our jobs. I had withdrawn half of our money from any shared accounts. I also stated that due to her decent job, there would be no need for spousal support or alimony. I expressed a preference for handling the matter outside of court. Then, I suggested that she email me regarding which furniture she wanted, as I was willing to split it with her. I informed her that I had already boxed up all her clothes and belongings from my house and had them in a truck outside ready for her to take. As I spoke, I couldn't hold back the tears any longer, and a few rolled down my cheek. I fell silent, and the room remained in stunned silence, as if everyone were frozen in place. My soon-to-be ex-wife continued to cry and wail non-stop. I closed my eyes and stood there silently. My ex-sister-in-law intervened, taking my soon-to-be ex-wife to another room. Meanwhile, my mom came over and hugged me, offering her support during one of the darkest times of my life. I walked up to my father-in-law and mother-in-law and softly said, "I am sorry. I couldn't protect your daughter." My father-in-law stood up and hugged me while my mother-in-law was overcome with tears. My father-in-law of my hand and reassured me, saying, "I know you did your best. Please keep in contact with us at least for a while." I agreed in a soft tone and took my mom with me as we walked out. My friend was already unloading the truck on their front porch when we returned. I helped him with the unloading. And once we were done, I looked back at the house where my father-in-law was standing in the doorway. I told him to email me if anything was missing or if my soon-to-be ex-wife needed something, and he agreed. My mom, my friend, and I then left in our respective vehicles. I knew I would likely have to give her the car as she needed it for her job. I already had a bike, so that was manageable. I also contemplated getting a truck, perhaps a Ford F-150. My mom offered me a place to stay at her home where she could offer support, but I expressed the need for some time alone to think and grieve properly. I assured her not to worry as I had my brothers to lean on. She agreed, but requested that I promise to call her every day and let her know how my day was going. When I got home, I broke down for the first time since this ordeal began. It's a pain unlike any other. One that words and phrases can't adequately describe. On the same day, all of my buddies confronted their wayward wives, each with their unique and painful stories. All the known other betrayed spouses were also informed, and we even emailed two other betrayed spouses whose families had moved out of state with all the relevant data. The following day, my buddies and I gathered, and there was a brief moment of silence. I couldn't hold back the tears, and eventually, I broke down and cried. We talked about what had happened, how we handled D-Day and exposure. What surprised me was that while the context was different for each of them, their wayward wives had offered excuses trying to explain their actions. Some even threw each other under the bus, blaming one another for their indiscretions. However, my soon-to-be ex-wife had chosen to remain silent throughout the ordeal. After discussing our experiences, we decided to change the topic and distract ourselves with other things. It's been 2 days since then, and my soon-to-be ex-wife has been blowing up my phone and email offering endless apologies. But I haven't replied. I'm choosing to ignore them. These past 2 days have been incredibly challenging. I find it difficult to breathe, and being at home feels like the walls are closing in on me. Consequently, I've spent most of my time outside with my buddies. I'm even contemplating putting in a request for early deployment with my commanding officer. I just want to get away from here for a while, but I'll do that after I get the divorce papers signed and filed in court. Right now, the pain is beyond description. I'm considering going on a vacation with my buddies to distract ourselves for a while. It's a small respite in the midst of this turmoil. With the support of my brothers in arms and the passage of time, we all started the process of healing. Each of us found strength in the bonds of friendship, helping one another mend the emotional wounds. We focused on rebuilding our lives, rediscovering our sense of purpose, and creating new, brighter futures for ourselves. As for me, I eventually found peace and closure. I learned to let go of the past and forgive, not for her, but for my own well-being. Time allowed me to rediscover joy in the simple things, the camaraderie of friends, and the beauty of life. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.